welcome to the Farming Podcast. Today is March 21st, 2018. I'm your host, Josiah Garber, and we've got a great show for you lined up today. This is the first show that I'm live streaming. It's also the first show that I'm recording from my home office rather than recording out on the road in the mobile podcast studio. So, audio should be better. Hopefully it's not worse. I do have a little bit of a cold today, so that will interfere a little bit, but I don't think too much. Anyway, I hope that you'll enjoy the show today. First thing I want to talk about is I'm no longer an employee at my old job. I'm excited about that. And yeah, I'm excited to be self-employed. And that started in March. And the second thing is we have a massive amount of snow today. Well, massive for this winter anyway. We have about 10 inches so far, I'd say, and it's still snowing, which is exciting because we haven't gotten much snow so far this year. So, one thing I've been working on since I quit my job and went full-time self-employed is getting the podcast set up for guests. So I am set up for guests. I can record guest interviews now. So if you know a guest that would like to be on the show, or if you would like to be on the show, let me know. Let me know that, and we can get you lined up. You can send me an email at josiah@thefarmingpodcast.com. The other thing is, we already talked about this a little bit, but the audio quality of the podcast should be improved. If you have suggestions for how to improve it more, that would be awesome. I am not an audio guy, but I'm learning. So send me your suggestions. I'd love to hear them. So what have I been up to? We're starting seeds again this year on the farm. And this year I was able to buy trays, cell packs, seed starting mix. I bought that at the Greenhouse Supply Center rather than the big box stores, and things are a lot cheaper there. So one suggestion, if you're going to be doing a lot of seed starting, would be to make sure that you get your seed starting supplies at a Greenhouse Supply store, not one of the big box stores, because it's a lot cheaper there. I think you just have a lot better experience with that. So what am I using for my seed starting setup? A while back, several years ago, we had started a seed starting setup basically in our basement. It didn't work out so good, I think mostly because there was too much moisture and it was too cold down there. But I have one of the shelves that you could pick up from like Lowe's, and you put them together. You know, they're real easy to put together, and then they have the metal pieces and then the shelves that you slide in. And they work really well for seed starting. And then I have some fluorescent lights that I started out with, and they work pretty well. They have to be really close to the plants, though. I think that's one of the most difficult things about starting seeds is you need a lot of light. Usually a window is not going to cut it. And so, yeah, you really need to get a lot of light on your plants, or they're going to stretch up and get really tall, which at first you're going to think, hey, this is great. My plants, they're growing so good. But that's not what you want. They're going to fall over and they're going to be weak. You want short, stocky plants. They will get tall eventually, but you really don't want them to be super duper stretched out. And what they're doing when they're stretched out like that is they're looking for light. That's really what they're trying to stretch up and get is the light. So I have the fluorescent lights, which I realized have to be like about an inch from the plants when you're starting them, which we can do. And I have them about an inch from the plants. And then I also use Kingbo 45-watt lights. I'll put a link in the show notes of today's show. You can get those on Amazon. They're LED lights, and they put out a lot more light, and they just work a lot better. So I think you'll like them. The other thing that I'm doing this year that I don't think I did in the past was fertilizing the seedlings. If there's no fertilizer in your seed mix, you need to fertilize the seedlings. And that's something that I really did not do in the past. And it seems silly in hindsight, but I'm doing it this year. I'm using the fish and kelp fertilizer, which works pretty well. At least so far, it's working well. And you don't need a lot. These are pretty small plants, so keep that in mind. The other thing I'm using is my own app. I'm using the Garden Planting Calculator app, and that's been working out pretty good. I have mostly vegetables in there, so if it's something you're interested in, just know that it's generally just vegetables. There's not a lot else in there, so. But it does work well for vegetables. The way that the Garden Planting Calculator app works is you put in your zip code, and it'll show you when to plant your seeds based on your last frost date. So that works out pretty well. If you want to check that out, just go on the Google Play Store and type in Garden Planting Calculator. You'll see it there and check it out. Beekeeping update. So almost all of my bees are dead, unfortunately, but that's the truth. And I think that was actually my fault. I don't think they got, basically what happened is early spring, I split them into multiple hives, and I don't think they ever built up and collected enough nectar for honey in order to, make it through the winter. So it was unfortunate, but that's what happened there. The bees, we still have a hive left, and I think they'll make it through to spring, but we'll see. I plan to catch more swarms of bees in the spring. Hopefully that'll work out pretty well. I think it will. We'll see. The other thing that I've been working on is high tensile fence installation. I told myself at the end of last year, after lots of loading challenges with cattle, and not sleeping well at night because we didn't have that great of a fence, I told myself that I would not get cattle again in the spring until I have better fence and a loading area. And so that's what I've been working on. And I know that I could do high tensile fence myself, and I was seriously considering that. But what I actually plan to do now is hire a company to do high tensile fence. I think they'll do a better job, and I think the results will be better in the end. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to hire somebody in order to get the high tensile fence in. And I also have preliminary plans for a loading area / corral. That's an area that when we get cattle in on the farm, we'll unload them into that area, and they will be, in a secure area where they can get accustomed to the new location without being able to break out of the fence. So I'm using for that loading area, I'm using what's called a bud box. I looked at some of Temple Grandin's work, which is pretty good, and some of her work was helpful in understanding how to design systems. And then I also looked at the bud box, which is a much cheaper system for loading cattle, and I really like it. If you have a smaller number of cattle, it works really well. It's easy to use, and I think it's going to be the solution that I'm looking for. So, going to use the bud box, and the basic concept of that is you're moving your cattle into the box, closing a gate, and then they come back. They get to the end of the box, which is closed, and they turn around. And then when they turn around, they find the chute, and they go down the chute and into the loading area. So that's the simple answer. There's a lot of stuff online about bud boxes. If you're looking for a low-cost way to load cattle, I think that's the way to go. So check that out. One of the things that was pretty tricky on our land when designing a corral and loading area, there's not a lot of flat ground, and there's not good access to the areas that we want to fence. So I was able to fit in the system that I want to build without too much trouble. So that was good. But yeah, it's something to think about when you're buying property. You know, what's your access? Not just your access to get into the land, but where are you going to load and unload cattle or supplies, that sort of things. If you have creeks or a creek like we do, how are you going to get across it? That's one of the challenges we have on the farm is how do we get across the creek? Not sure the best way to go about that. Another thing we did recently was we completed an HVAC project in the summer kitchen, which is where I'm at now. Allows me to have an office, possibly to do Airbnb, a farm store, farm workshops, that sort of thing. So that was nice to get that completed. I'm excited to be able to utilize this space better without having to start a fire or fire up the electric baseboard heaters, which they suck down a lot of heat. So another thing I've been working on is the farm store. I'm almost done with all that paperwork. I need to complete 5 water tests, I think, and then send the paperwork into the state. And I think it'll take some time from there to get the farm store up and running. I'm excited about that, though. That's going to open some opportunities for us. Not as happy about how much work it was to get that done, but in the end, I think it'll be worth it. So we brought on some new beef products this year for 2018. We have uncured hot dogs, uncured sweet bologna, beef cubes, and hamburger patties. I think they're going to be pretty popular with our customers. I tried out some hamburger patties already. That's really convenient to throw those in the grill, and I think in the summer those should sell pretty good for us, as well as the hot dogs. The beef cubes, they're great for stews and things like that, and sweet bologna, just a tasty snack, or good for sandwiches as well. Working on getting a garden shed together for the garden, a place where we can store our tools that's closer to the garden, and it'll also be close to the house too, so we'll have good access there in order to do that. Need to do some more paperwork there as well. Almost done with the permit application, and then we'll send that off and we'll be ready to go. Of course, the company I am going with to build the shed, I think they went to Texas or something for rebuilding. So it'll be a little bit till they're back. Another thing, working on farm accounting, I started to split income sources so we can have a better understanding of where our income is coming in from, and that will help us to make better decisions about the business. A couple pieces of equipment we got over this winter, BCS sickle bar mower. So we have a BCS tractor. That's a 2-wheel tractor and some attachments for it. We got a sickle bar mower this winter, put that together. That will allow us to mow certain areas of our property that we need to mow. And sickle bar just cuts at the bottom and drops the material. And the advantage of that kind of mower is it's quick and it does not use a lot of fuel. So obviously we'll be using the cattle a lot to harvest grass, but there's some places where we need to use a mower. So also got a Echo Pro attachment series. So that's like a weed eater, but it has attachments for it. Things like the hedge trimmer or the chainsaw and a long pole, so you can do some work on trees higher up. And so that'll be nice. There's been several times last year where I wished I had that. And one of the main reasons I got a new weed eater is because The one I have was just a homeowner's type weed eater, and I needed to do a lot of weed eating under the fence so it didn't short out. And so I bought a more powerful weed eater this year, and things should go a little quicker. So I'm excited about that. Anyway, I am excited for this year to see what it holds. I think the podcast is going to be exciting this year. There's going to be a lot of changes, and I'd really love to hear your podcast or your feedback on this podcast. Again, I'm a little under the weather. My brain is almost fully up to speed, and my voice is not quite there yet. So hopefully in a day or two, we'll be back up and running full steam ahead. Anyway, thanks for listening to the Farming Podcast. I really appreciate all you guys. I'm looking forward to a great 2018. Best wishes in all your farming ventures, and keep listening.